In the 1920s, the growing density of Black intellectuals and artists in Harlem generated a Black-centered movement of the arts called the Harlem Renaissance. At the forefront of the Harlem Renaissance was the New Negro movement, which sought to dismantle harmful Black stereotypes present in mainstream media. This movement was problematic, however, in its exclusion of Black femalehood and its idealization of Black life. During this time period, Zora Neale Hurston emerged as a leader of the literary crusade. Through her groundbreaking folkloric literary works and ethnographic research, Hurston took a stand against mainstream media and the new Negro thinkers. Her self-determined Black female protagonists and her multifaceted depiction of Black identity presented a holistic, unapologetic picture of Southern Black culture and Black womanhood. The early 20th century was a time of both difficulty and progress for Blacks. The notion of 100% Americanism became popularized during World War I, as reflected in media portrayal of Blacks and foreigners. White America was cast in a patriotic manner in pop culture during this time period, but poor representation of Blacks only worsened. The Birth of a Nation, a film released in 1915, portrayed Black people as simple-minded and primitive, further establishing traditional stereotypes. It also inspired the revival of the KKK, leading to even more racial turmoil throughout the country, especially in the South, as World War I came to a close. This racial violence in the South, in conjunction with the new opportunities Blacks experienced during the war, inspired an increased migration of Blacks to the North, in search of better job opportunities and a safer environment. This phenomenon, called the Great Migration, began initially during Reconstruction, but skyrocketed during this time period, resulting in a large population of Blacks in northern urban areas. Most notably, the neighborhood of Harlem in New York City transformed into a hub of Black culture and arts. This culminated in the Harlem Renaissance, a movement of the arts largely based on a new Negro philosophy. The new Negro thinkers rejected traditional stereotypes of Blacks as ignorant, crude, and uncivilized in favor of diametrically opposed ideals. When new Negro writers of the time period wrote complex depictions of Blacks, they were often educated, middle class, and from northern cities. Southern Black life and history, on the other hand, was seen by most new Negro thinkers as politically regressive, so they were determined to keep this facet of Black identity out of their image. By challenging the notion that representation of Blacks in media must be an idealized portrait appealing to whites, Zora Neale Hurston took a stand against the new Negro thinkers, instead portraying Black Americans, especially in the rural South, in a holistic and celebratory fashion. Zora Neale Hurston grew up in the first ever incorporated all-Black community of Eatonville, Florida, and so Hurston was immersed in vibrant Southern Black culture and achievement from a young age. This love of Black culture took on an anthropological angle as she worked with leading ethnographic researcher Franz Boas during her time at Barnard College. After her graduation, Hurston traveled to many rural, poorer areas in the South and Caribbean, documenting and filming traditional stories, songs, and dances.
Oh, you like my features, but you don't like me. Don't you like my features? Don't you shake my tree? Oh, well, you may go, but this will bring you back.
Hurston incorporated this unparalleled ethnographic research of Black traditions and collected folklore into works such as Mules and Men, which was the first collection of Southern Black folklore by a Black American.
She's focusing in on the beauty, the challenges, the complexities of Black culture outside of always being in relation to whiteness.
In doing so, she simultaneously took a stand against traditional racist stereotypes present in media, as well as the idealized new Negro perspective. Of her first novel, Jonah's Gourdvine, Hurston stated, "I tried to be natural and not pander to the folks that expect a clown and a villain in every Negro. Neither did I want to pander to those race people who see nothing but perfection in all of us." Another controversial way in which Hurston took a stand against new Negro standards was through her use of Southern Black dialect in works such as Their Eyes Were Watching God. Sensitive to the caricaturization of Black dialect, many other Black writers of the time period denounced this use of vernacular. One of Hurston's most ruthless critics was Richard Wright, a popular protest writer of the 1930s to 50s. He openly dismissed her use of Southern Black dialect, stating, "Her prose is cloaked in that facile sensuality that has dogged Negro expression. He also believed that Hurston's works exploited that phase of Negro life which is quaint, failing to see that her portrayal of Southern Black life as rich and complicated was protest in itself. Though Hurston was relentlessly shamed for not conforming to the ideals set in place by her contemporaries, she refused to alter her methods of promoting Black pride and culture. Although the Harlem Renaissance was a time of progress for Blacks, women were underrepresented and undervalued in the movement. The vast majority of Black women during this time period were employed as houseworkers, maids, or laundresses, and thus not many had the economic stability or time to participate in the arts. In addition, major Renaissance figures such as Alain Locke were openly sexist, and men were the primary focus of their vision for the elevation of Blacks in society. Therefore, the reality of Black womanhood was seldom dealt with during this time period, even in Harlem Renaissance authors' works. Taking a stand against the pervasive notion that Black women were not worthy of a holistic depiction in literature, Zora Neale Hurston put Black female experiences at the core of her works, bringing a necessary and new perspective to American literature. Most notably, in Their Eyes Were Watching God, Hurston courageously criticized gender roles in the development of Janie, the protagonist. From a young age, Janie is taught that traditional marital life is the only key to happiness, yet, out of Janie's 3 marriages, she finds joy only in the final one, her sole relationship with relatively equal gender roles. When her last husband dies, though Janie is of course distraught, she perseveres and demonstrates strength in her ability to live on her own accord without a man. Unlike her popular contemporaries, Hurston's works often focused on Black female experiences and hardships, taking a stand by portraying them as resilient, complex characters who are able to overcome oppressive, patriarchal norms. During the Harlem Renaissance itself, Robert Hemingway, Hurston's biographer, wrote that she helped to remind the Renaissance, especially its more bourgeois members, of the richness and the racial heritage. While Hurston did have some success during the Harlem Renaissance, the movement essentially ended at the dawn of the Great Depression, before the majority of Hurston's works were published. After the Great Depression, Black literature gained some popularity again, but the popular novels all centered around race relations, with writers such as Richard Wright and Ralph Ellison writing of African American struggles with a clear political agenda. Hurston's illustration of Southern Black life simply did not fit this ideal. Therefore, much of Hurston's most significant novels published during this time period were not fully appreciated, and she died in poverty in 1960. The most important effects Hurston had on the artistic world occurred posthumously, after the revival of her work during the early 1970s. During this time period, the Black Power movement had gained notoriety, and the affirmation of Black culture present in Hurston's works clearly coincided with the Black Power movement's celebration of Blackness without white influence. The Black Power movement, however, was fraught with misogyny, not always welcoming Black women. Second-wave feminism was similarly exclusive. In response to being excluded in the fight for equality, Black women developed a new movement, Black feminism. Black feminist literature became popular, with Alice Walker on the forefront. As Hurston was one of the first popular American novelists to center her stories around the lives of Black women, Walker was astonished and inspired by Hurston's works when she discovered them, and felt it was an injustice that Hurston had faded into obscurity. To raise awareness of Hurston's works, Walker wrote a series of essays, the most prominent entitled In Search of Zora Neale Hurston. In an essay on Hurston, Walker stated that Hurston held her own against the flood of whiteness and maleness that diluted so much other Black art of the period, is a testimony to her genius and her faith. Due to Walker's revival of interest in Zora Neale Hurston, Their Eyes Were Watching God is often hailed as the first novel by and about a Black woman to be incorporated into the traditional American literary canon.
She is one of the most important American writers that this country has ever produced. And I think it says something about her as a person, but also her as an artist, that people continue to discuss and debate and to love Hurston for all of her greatness and her flaws.
Hurston's taking a stand for a proper representation of Black female identity and for the blackening of American culture ultimately has inspired and will continue to inspire millions of writers and young women of color.